am here today with Jessie Schewchuk, owner of Modern Muse and lots of other incredible initiatives and projects. And we've got lots to talk about today. So welcome here, Jessie. I'm thrilled that you've joined me.
Thank you.
Yeah. You had a very life-defining moment early on as a young girl. And would you be willing just to start there?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was 23 years old, we had found out that my mom's cancer, breast cancer, had moved into her brain and that she was given days to live. So right before my 24th birthday, I was married in a private ceremony on the acreage. And the same ceremony, my mom was read her last rites. And 11 days later, she died in my arms. So I actually felt my mom's breath stop on my head. I heard her heart stop beating in her chest. And it was this massive moment in my life of radical shift, if you will, onto, a path of, I would say, probably grief, deep despair, self-destruction, resentment, anger, feeling cheated by the world in many, many ways. And so it was just this veer in my life of losing the most important person in my world.
Yeah. And you're able to speak that with such clarity now in hindsight. But it probably didn't feel quite that clear at the time.
No, it was shocking. I was in shock for a long time. So our parents were boomers and they believed in not talking about things and protecting the children at all costs. So conversations weren't had. When my mom was diagnosed, I think it was something like 7 years previous to her death, we didn't know what stage it was. I had never been to a chemo treatment. We weren't involved in the process out of protection. And they thought that was in our best interest. Right. That's what they knew. And that was their paradigm. When it came time to find out that it had moved into her brain, it was this state of complete shock because we just always believed that she was going to be okay, that she was going to make it through. Our parents were invincible.
Yes.
They didn't talk about things, right? And so when she passed, my dad and my sister went to the Cross Cancer Institute for therapy. And I went into my boss's office and said, give me everything you got. And for the next 20 years, I would throw myself into my career and into my work as a way to distract from actually processing and feeling the grief of my mother's death, the loss, and as a way to prove myself for so many different reasons. So,
and that created great success in your career. So let's talk about that. So you had a highly successful career. So talk about what that looked like.
I just had a wild, amazing ride. When I went into my boss's office, he had given me a project that was for the Prime Minister Awards of Excellence. I traveled across Canada multiple times for that project. I lived basically out of the airport for, I think, almost 2 years following her death. That led to creating my own show, which was Speaker's Corner Alberta. I had a half-hour weekly television series. Then we were bought by Chum. I was an on-camera entertainment reporter while I was producing my own show. And then I was given an opportunity to work for an organization called Prairie Dog Film and Television and jump ship from the broadcast side of things to be on more of the independent production side, creating content for TV's broadcasters. And so I ended up doing a 13-part television series on going green when eco-friendly was starting to be cool and trending. And then we ended up doing a half-hour drama, sitcom, if you will, called Mixed Blessings. And we worked with a broadcaster called APTN. And this launched us into creating a little show called Blackstone. Now, Blackstone was slated in Canada, The Little Show That Could. We built this television series on half the budget of the shows we were competing with, like Rookie Blue, Orphan Black, Stargate SG-1. We were well known in Vancouver and Toronto, very little known in Edmonton area, what was happening here, which was wild. Multi award-winning television series. We were nominated many times for what is the Emmy of Canada, so the Canadian Screen Awards. We beat Stargate SG-1 at the Leo Awards in Vancouver, and my life was red carpets and limousines and rubbing elbows with, you know, the stars of Schitt's Creek when that was just launching. It was just this incredibly surreal decade of my life.
And were you enjoying it? Like, what was going on inside of Jessie at that time?
I was enjoying it immensely. I remember when Michelle Thrush won the Gemini Award, which is the Emmy of Canada for Best Actress. And we were in the we were in the Sony studios in Toronto, and there was no self-service. And we got into the elevator and jumped up and down. I thought the elevator was going to break, and got outside to where we had self-service. And I remember calling my dad, and he said, "Capture this moment. These are the moments. And there's going to be highs and there's going to be low, Jess, but this is just capture this."
Yeah.
On the flip side of things, I was 33 years old on the cover of Top 40 Under 40 that year, 2012, and going through my second divorce when my child was the age of 2. And so my personal life had been just very tumultuous, very, very tumultuous, following patterns of behavior in my life and relationships that mirrored my parents growing up. There was a lot of fighting. I thought this was normal. It was very normalized. There was a lot of toxicity. That's what I would draw into my world. And to escape all of that, I would just continue to throw myself into my work. It was just the ultimate distraction.
So kind of two worlds going on. One's at the peak and one's falling apart, so to speak.
Yeah, I remember in 2012 when I was 33, the magazine coming out, I was on the cover of it. And I remember looking at it, and it doesn't actually really look like me. In fact, I showed it to my little girl who was 2.5, 3 at the time, and she didn't recognize me. I was like, "Hey, it's mommy." And she's like, "No, that's not mommy." And it was just this really defining moment that, yeah, I had this mom life. I was going to embark on shared custody, which I didn't realize was going to be one of the hardest things I would ever have to navigate. And yet at just the height of my career. And I looked at that person on the cover of the magazine and I thought, yes, and if only they knew. 2012 was probably one of the best and worst years of my life. And it was so weird experiencing this multi-dimensional life that of two severe extremes.
Yeah. And so what was the transition out of the broadcasting world and the television world? So what was that?
Another tumultuous relationship. Yeah. So I ended up, after Naomi's dad and I divorced, I ended up in a relationship with the executive producer. So my colleague and my friend. And when I speak about this on stages, I give a moment for the crowd to groan or roll their eyes or whatever. Because when you're looking from the outside in, yes, there's lots of room to judge. But we had been friends and colleagues for a really long time. And I really, to this day, love this human being. But little did I know that, or I was blind to, that's the truth there. I was blind to the fact that there was an addiction at play in that world. And we lived together and we had a blended family together and we were together completely combined, immersed in both life and work. And everything was wonderful and amazing when this addiction wasn't present.
Yeah.
And when it was like Jekyll and Hyde. It was one of the scariest things that I've ever experienced. I'd never dealt with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so ultimately,
Well, I ended up getting fired and was begged to come back, so left that situation. And I applied for a whole bunch of jobs.
Yeah.
I was this multi-award-winning, wildly successful television producer, but nobody knows what a producer does. It's like nobody. And I couldn't get a job. I couldn't get a job. And so I ended up, I did end up actually securing a position with my realtors. So I had owned properties and such, and he wanted to bring me in for marketing. He said, if you ever need something, give me a call. And so I was at the point where I had given him a call, and I worked with them for a little while. But while I was doing that, something else was brewing, and that was a business. And that was Modern Muse Media. Yeah. And Modern Muse Media looks very differently today than what it was birthed as, if you will.
Yeah.
It was actually, it actually started out to be a production company to provide young women with opportunities to get their projects off the ground. So I was the muse as the executive producer to their dream projects, their TV shows. I had known how to do all of the paperwork, navigate the Canadian television system. But I was about 2 years in with 11 different projects trying to get off the ground. It was very, very difficult to get a series going in Canada, and realized this wasn't making me any money. And so I needed to pivot, as they will say, at that point. But that's how the company was forged over 9 years ago now, is really through not being able to find work for myself. So creating, I'd like to say, a table for me to sit at, because I wasn't pulling a chair up to a table. I was building the table.
Which is stressful, I can only imagine, right? So, and often how companies get born, right, is out of that place. And so talk about early years as an entrepreneur and building and creating your table.
Well, I definitely had something to prove.
Yeah.
Because I think there were a lot of people, and I knew this because I had heard this information back, that felt I had rode the coattails of being with my boss.
Okay.
In a personal relationship.
Yeah.
Even though I had worked extremely hard and made up for a lot of things, I really had run the show for in a lot of aspects for a long time. But in me, I had something to prove that I could do this. I'll show them. I was now a single parent with a single income and needing to provide for my daughter, who was 5 years old at that time. And so running a business was harder than anything that I could have ever imagined, other than parenting.
Yeah.
And even though I was co-executive producer of a team of anywhere from 300 to 500 cast and crew running departments, I knew how to produce TV. I didn't know business. I didn't know how to do bookkeeping. I didn't know how to do operations and systems and processes. I knew what I was passionate about. And you hear this often with entrepreneurs. You jump into something that you're passionate about, but you don't really know how to run the business. And the stress of that landed me in the hospital twice with pneumonia due to burnout.
Yeah.
Go, go, go.
Go, go, go.
I'm a driven girl. I was a driven girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At what point do you start looking at the grief? Is this still burying yourself in work? Is that where you still are in the journey personally?
Yeah, no, yeah. I was, I think I was a good 18 years of accomplishing great things.
Yeah.
The turning point for me was when I was on a phone call with my dad. I've only seen my dad cry 3 times in his life. One was when he fell off the ladder, pruning the apple tree on our acreage, and punctured his lungs in the hospital. 2 was when my mom died. That's what gets me. And 3 was when he said to me, Jess, where's the line? Where's the line? And I said, I don't think there is one. Like, I was going to go as far as I could, and I was going to go into the grave. And that was very moving for me. Because my dad was always the person in jest and ingrained. They said, put your big girl panties on and we got to get through this. And, you know, his daughters, he was going to teach to be strong. And he did. He did.
Yeah.
But he was actually giving me permission in that moment to stop and reflect and look at things. And at this time, I was actually getting up on stages and doing a bit more speaking about my journey and sharing my story about my mom and such. And I got up onto the stage at an event, and there was this woman there named Corby Furrow, and she specializes in emotional freedom techniques, EFT. Most people have no idea what this is about, but it's really profound work. A lot of folks know it more as tapping, but it's much deeper than that. My daughter was there that day. My sister was there that day. I think my cousin was there that day as well. And they saw me speak. And I couldn't speak about my mom's death without completely falling apart. Corby came up to me afterward and said, you have an incredible, profound story. Would you like to learn how to tell it with the emotion, what removed, really? Like being able to tell it from a place of peace rather than from a place of turmoil. And so I started to work with her, and we did a deep dive into that day, that very, very profound day. I mean, not a lot of people have the experience of watching their mom's body be carried out in a bag.
Yeah.
And so we tapped and we leaped, quantum leaped, and we worked and we dug deep, and it was really profound. And that was the beginning.
Yeah.
That was the beginning of the journey where I started to say yes to things that I knew that I needed for me.
Which is a big shift, right? To be in the outside producing and now to go inside and to do that work internally.
It's a lot harder.
It's yeah.
It's a lot harder.
Yeah.
So, and around that time I was networking with you and watching you speak, and was just incredibly moved, I think mostly by the full spectrum success, because I had known success in my life, and I'd known moments of success in relationship. I've had great loves and no regrets. My journey is mine that I own. And I knew that there was work to be needed in quadrants for consistency and sustainability rather than the highs and the lows, right? The roller coaster living.
Yeah. Full spectrum rather than just here and there. And so many people operate at high levels in their career, their business, but at the expense of and the cost of their health or their relationships, not recognizing that you can have it all, right? And that can be a new paradigm for people.
Huge. Like I think that's a new paradigm for most people. Right?
Yeah. And so we started to do some work together and creating that vision. And so just maybe talk a little bit about that and some of the shifts that happened. And I think one of the pieces, I have so many people that come to me and they know I have a marketing background, or can you help me with marketing? If I could just do marketing better, or if I could just do this piece better. And it feels like we need to do more or do something differently. And what I always say, this isn't about doing, this is about being. But just maybe some of those mindset shifts and what happened in your world internally, and then some of the external results from that.
Well, it took me quite a few times to come to events with you speaking to sign up. But when I did, I definitely saw shifts happen faster than I expected. So that was really profound. I, at the time, had been a single parent for quite a long time, running a business. When I look back now, I wouldn't recommend that, not having a second income. But I'd done it on my own for 9 years, and I had developed this identity around it. So this deep, fierce independence, single mom, female entrepreneur, all female team, fuck the patriarchy, you can beep that out, attitude.
Yeah.
And I was angry and I was hurt.
Yeah.
And damaged. And so I was really wanting to find a relationship, one that was healthy, one that looked different.
Yeah.
But I couldn't see what that looked like from the place that I was coming from. And so some of the first work that we did together is really around that shift.
Yeah.
And I had actually stood up and spoke in front of the whole room, and you had calibrated that. It was a moment, let me tell you. It was this aha moment where you said, but Jessie, how can you attract what you're asking for on the page, which was this stable, consistent, healthy relationship and someone I adored and someone who cherished me, when you are a single mom, independence, and you pulled some of the words out that I was using to introduce myself with.
Yeah.
I needed to drop those descriptives. I needed to drop that identity.
Yes.
And in a very, very short amount of time, I ended up attracting my partner, who is all of the things that I had written on the page, and all of the things that we wanted to do. We're living the life and just seeing that really come to life. But it was in a very short time. Like, I had wanted to meet this person organically and not online. I had wanted to know similar people, and we had shared clients. We had been in the same rooms for business events and didn't even know it. This was all probably within a few months.
Yeah.
Of putting pen to page.
Yeah.
Differently.
Yes. I remember that moment so clearly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think two things, it's really hard to see our own subconscious blocks, right? Really tough to see how those things fit together. And what people don't realize is that your self-image and how you identify is going to be reflected back in your results. And so I'm a strong, independent, single mom. Mm-hmm. Yes, factually, that's true. But that identity and that self-image is not a vibrational match to the woman in the relationship. And just that piece, I just want people to hear that, because we've got to shift that internal self-image and that belief system, because what's created that result is not what's going to create the new result. Mm-hmm. Yeah, really powerful.
It was. It was. And it's really interesting that it's in the nuance. It wasn't a big shift. It was a couple of descriptives. It was a couple of adjectives.
Yes.
But I was embodying it.
Yeah.
And it's just a testament to the power of words.
Yeah.
Tweak.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Small shifts can make big, big changes. Mm. Yeah. So, hospitalized, running a business, but you didn't stay there. So, talk about what happened on the business side of it, and what some of those shifts were around operating a business.
When we talk about the small shifts or even the calibration of words, I think what stands out to me is I started to come from a place of abundance rather than a place of desperation. Mm-hmm. That was a big one. When I was showing up at events and I was networking, because I had this sense of needing to provide around that identity of being a single mom, there was this energy of desperation that I now can see in others.
Yeah.
So, of course, you need to experience your own thing and then step away from that as the observer to be able to see that. But I didn't see it at the time. I was coming in, and I am an energetic person.
Yeah.
And I, unapologetically, I will always be high frequency. And that high frequency, I think, can show up out of that desperation, out of that lack, out of, hey, how's it going? Franticness.
Yeah.
Or can come out of embodying joy and confidence and, hey, how's it going? And, just you could look from the outside and see it almost appear similarly.
Yeah.
But when you experience the energy of those things, very different.
Yes.
Very different. So I just started to attract different team members. I started to attract different clients. We worked on some of the things about feast or famine, or clients paying on time. And those shifts were really profound too, because those were high stressors for me. So it was just, the business was just playing out differently. And I became joyful again in the business. There was a period of time where I really started to resent it because it was hurting me.
Yeah.
Right? And each business has energy of its own.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so me resenting the business is just going to have the business, backlashing, right?
Yeah.
Just like a child, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know that everything kind of happened quite as quickly as the relationship shifts that I could document per se, but it was really more the feeling of the day-to-day, enjoying the work again, enjoying the clients, not feeling that anger of them not paying on time because they were paying on time, or, so those things matter. Those things, it just felt more in flow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. From that push, desperation, energy to flow, peace, and how it feels is really the most important thing, right? Where you can find that joy in what you're doing.
It is so incredibly important. And I think that that push, like we'll just do something because we're supposed to be doing it. And I've said to my team that I have today that looks different than the team that I had last year, because there were different shifts in the business, that when this isn't fun anymore, when I'm not enjoying this, then it's time for something new.
Yeah.
And I think the fear has gone from that as well. Like, whereas before I had to have this business and this business needed to be successful, I've since launched a nonprofit. I've since launched a second business. I could go and get a job if I wanted to.
Yeah.
It's that I'm showing up in a place of what fulfills me.
Yes.
Because we just do the things that we're supposed to do that define success, when success is actually fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
That's success.
Yeah, it's no longer so many team members and so much revenue and being on front of the cover of the magazine, right? How you define that has changed.
Yeah, I mean, the cover of the magazine is still nice.
Well, yeah.
Come on. Who doesn't want to be on the cover of the magazine, right? But I think what you get from that is just feels very different.
Let's talk about the not-for-profit and how did that come about and what does that look like?
So I was going along my merry way, very much integrated into my health journey, feeling really good. I love this part when you're like cruising along in your car and all of a sudden like the big wave comes yet again, and that wave was menopause. Suddenly my health took a dive, and it was anxiety, waking up in the middle of the night with panic, feeling suicidal ideation, and gaining a lot of weight really rapidly. My skin was changing, my hair was changing. I felt joint pain and achy. It was sudden. Yeah. It was sudden, which I now know it was my estrogen crash. Mm-hmm. So basically, I asked for help. I got help through my naturopath, who was incredible and amazing. I was on the waiting list to get into the menopause clinic. But through that process, I decided to create a 22-part documentary series to find out what was going on. Yeah. And I knew how to produce TV. That was something that I could do in my sleep. I couldn't find my keys, couldn't find my phone, had zero executive function, but I could produce TV. So gleaned all of this information from the top experts in the field. It was an incredible experience, and started talking to other women about this when I was out networking. And so you wouldn't believe what I've just been through and what I've come through. And women were coming out of the shadows going, oh my gosh, me too. My doctor has dismissed me. I feel like I'm going crazy. Something is off. I've lost my confidence. And I realized there was this massive gap between education, up to date education, and women.
Yeah.
And a lack of community, a lack of connection, and women feeling really, really isolated and alone and confused.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to bring all of these experts and connect them with women. And so I started a nonprofit called the Menopause Mission. And our mission is to make the M word mainstream, to advocate for awareness around menopause, perimenopause, and to catalyze conversation. So yeah, that happened. So, yeah.
And what has come out of that? What's the impact been?
I mean, it's been really phenomenal. The emails I get, the phone messages I receive, it's been profound. Women are being seen, they're being heard. Practitioners are having platforms where they're actually able to share information that is evidence-based, that is up to date. And I say that because there's a lot of misinformation, there's a lot of miseducation out there with a study that had come out in the early 2000s that has been completely debunked. And so a lot of myths, and we are a part of the change and of the shift. And it's really amazing. I will be in business conversations and sharing with both men and women, because this isn't a female issue. This is a human transition.
Yeah.
We are one of the only mammals that experiences menopause. We are transitioning into elderdom. When you talk about caveman days and communities, it is the elders who advise the young women, the youth, the up and coming, and we need to go through this journey, this eye of the needle to come out to the other side and graduate. And so it's to be honored. It impacts husbands, it impacts partners, it impacts children, workplaces, everyone.
Yeah.
And so it's been hugely impactful.
Well, and I think women being heard and the community that you've created and those connections has been significant. So if somebody wants to find out more about that, where do they go?
themenopausemission.org.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the documentary series is on there. So free 22 hours to invest of nothing but good information and qualified experts pouring in. And and then an opportunity to get out and connect with like-minded women who are going through similar experiences and listen to experts that come out and share their wisdom.
Yeah. Great. Just talking about your journey today, Jessie, and you can just see the shift within you. And so if you look back at your 20-something, 30-something self compared to today, what would you say has been some of the greatest growth, awarenesses about the wisdom that you have today? And what would you tell that version of you?
Oh, I mean, I tell her often, because I do the inner child work and the inner young 20s woman work, that everything's going to be okay. Like, really, everything's going to be okay. Because the devastation was so massive. And that's the work, is just the understanding. When I was in my early 20s, before my mom passed away, you would find me in the Kohl's bookstore. I'm dating myself. And so in the, oh my gosh, it was one aisle for kind of the spiritual work.
Yeah.
It was
New Age.
Yeah. You would find me sitting on the carpet in the New Age aisle reading the Celestine Prophecy, or one of the very few books that you could get your hands on. Yeah. I was watching What the Bleep Do We Know, which was a documentary put out that was pre The Secret. Yeah. I was on this journey. Then. Yeah. And we just got knocked off for a while. So the most profound thing for me has been able to reconnect with my spirituality, reconnect with my soul's purpose, reconnect with alignment, and just feeling that through and through, right? There's ups and downs. The work with you, the work in general that we talk about is not without its tears, ugly cries. It's carpet pulls. Life still happens.
Yeah.
You know, I lost 4 team members at once, as well as a significant funding organization or a funding agent within my organization last year that almost broke the company. Like, we were almost done. It's the power to deal with it differently.
Yes.
To come from a place of curiosity, to come from a place of solution finding.
Yeah.
Rather than problem solving. Those are the tools where things are going to happen. Life is going to happen. People are going to pass. We're going to lose things. We're going to get in the car accidents, or we're going to have the things occur. But it's how you navigate that I think has been the most profound work for me. And that's ongoing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'll never forget. I know you love this moment where I had been through your program for the first 6 months. And at that time, that's how long the program was. And so, I'm waiting for the certificate, and it's like, okay, I did the work. I'm good to go, right? Got her done,
Check.
Check the box, right? And you're like, Jess, this never ends. Yeah. For an age, I was like, what do you mean this never ends? No. End point, end game, right? That's also been a big shift for me.
Yeah.
To embrace that this progress over perfection. I am a work in progress every single day.
Yeah. Well, and the reason it doesn't end, just to really qualify that, is because as long as we're breathing, we're growing, we have new dreams, we have new missions, we live in a universe of contrast, like we're infinite beings. Yeah. And when we can embrace that journey and to know that, there's going to be the highs, there's going to be the lows, and it's all a gift. And that's where we say it's who you become in the process. And when you can recognize that you're greater than any situation, any circumstance, and you're so much more powerful than that, that's the gift of it all, I believe.
That is the gift. My favorite song, my pump up song, I listen to it on the way out, is Unstoppable by Sia. Because I really, really do feel that. I do feel unstoppable. Not at every moment of every single day. Yeah. But when I am juiced with the energy of and the power of this work, I do feel unstoppable. Yeah. I can overcome anything.
When you think about that feeling of being unstoppable, that doesn't just happen to you. It's usually accumulation of new habits, new patterns. What are some of the go-tos? I often get this question. What's the one thing I can do? Or what are the most important things? What would you say?
Morning meditation.
Yeah.
I'm not a big journaler. I love to come to your Passion to Purpose sessions because it is the time that I do most of my pen to paper, which is very important. And the way you start your day is really powerful. I listen to Abraham Hicks, and so does my partner with me in the morning, almost every morning without fail. And so it is just a way to calibrate your energy, to start your day, to remind your brain to just get into that. Now, and meditation, that's scary for a lot of people. It was scary for me. It does not need to be anything but sitting and listening to a recording and doing your best to come back to that listening. Yeah. So if you hear the dog bark, or if you hear the garbage truck go by, just come back. That's all. Yeah. That's all you need to do. And with that repetition, it's just setting the tone for the day. Yeah. Another thing that I do that I love to share is I am a big believer of dry erase markers on mirrors. So if you come to my home, it doesn't matter what bathroom you go into, there will be messages on mirrors. Yeah. And so these are reminders. These are things that we look at every single day.
Yes. Love it.
Yeah.
So good, Jessie. Life looks good on you.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you for sharing this with us. And it's not a straight line, and there's the ups and the downs and lots of lessons in all of it. So I appreciate your willingness to share that.
I appreciate you, and I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful that you came into my life and for the work we get to do together.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. I hope that you enjoyed this conversation, and my invitation to you is just to take one idea from Jessie's story, and all we need is one idea that can make a big, significant change in our life. So what is that one idea for you? Would love to hear that in the comments. I am Stacey Berger, and here is to you living a life that you love.